Joining us now as we welcome in Congressman Peter King, chairman of the subcommittee on counterterrorism in the House and member of the House Permanent Select Committee. Hello, sir.
Hey, Steve. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being out there for us. I appreciate it. Your first response to the horror that we've unfortunately become accustomed to.
Well, it is horror, and if anything positive can come out of a tragedy such as this, possibly a wake-up call to people that the enemy is Islamist terrorism, that it's going to be here for a long time, that we can't be shaking hands with it or be nice to them and hope it'll go away. This is an enemy which is willing and able to strike at almost any time. And also, I think it's a reflection that, the Belgians, they were on the alert for this. They thought there might be an attack. And yet, ISIS is still able to carry out a very sophisticated attack at multiple locations with secondary explosions, and which shows that they are either using these encrypted apps on their phones or they're using throwaway phones, using burner phones, which means we're not going to get the type of intercepted phone calls we used to get in the past, which means we need surveillance on the ground. We need undercovers. We need informants. We need intelligence coming out of the Muslim community. We have to be able to stop these attacks before they start, which means putting aside political correctness and realizing that if the enemy is coming out of the Muslim community, there should be increased police surveillance. That's not profiling. It's common sense.
All right, let me ask you also, a plane that was scheduled to arrive before 1 o'clock at Orlando's Sanford International Airport, which was coming from Brussels, everybody was searched. They pulled it over. They met it on the tarmac. Do you know anything about that? Were they looking for anybody possibly involved in planning or carrying out the attacks?
My understanding, it was done as a precaution because of where it left from and the time it left. That's all I know so far. I don't know if there's anything more specific than that.
How is it possible, one might ask, we've seen the picture of the two suicide bombers wheeling what has to be the explosives. How could a country that's on such high alert how could they allow these two guys to be wheeling explosives through the airport?
I think the Europeans have been behind us, have been behind as far as counterterrorism, as far as internal security. They thought for years after 9/11 that we had overreacted. I can tell you we used to get a hard time just asking for the passenger manifests on planes leaving Europe because we wanted to check to see if anyone was on a terror watch list. They thought this was all overreaction by this. Also, their counter-terror programs underfinanced, underfunded, and there's almost a schizophrenic attitude in Europe. When something like this does happen, they are much more heavy-handed than we are, but prior to it happening, they're reluctant to what they call violate anyone's privacy. It's really it's interesting to watch. Unfortunately, we're past the stage where things can be interesting. We have to worry about survival.
Yep. All right, you heard some of the Miranda Khan package that we presented before you came on. Does Donald Trump, out of all the sound bites you heard, does he have it right? Do we need to stop letting Muslims into this country until we could figure out what to do?
I think we should put no, I wouldn't go that far. Here's what I would say. We should not allow any refugees in from Syria or Iraq because there's no way of vetting them. That's number one. Number two, as far as others, there should be a higher standard because we are not sure who, not always 100% certain as to who they could be. But for instance, we have countries like Jordan, which is one of our closest allies in the Middle East, Egypt, and so I wouldn't put a blanket ruling out there saying that people from Jordan can't come to the U.S. or people from Egypt. We may want to give them an extra look, maybe 2 extra looks, but I wouldn't have that uniform ban, no.
And so what was your reaction to Trump on NATO?
I disagree with him. I think that, listen, NATO, I do have real problems with NATO in that they are, in many ways, they have fallen behind. They are not, their defense budgets, those countries have defense budgets far lower proportionally than what ours is. But I would not take NATO down. I would attempt to restructure it. And that's where you need leadership. That's where you need an American president to show leadership rather than watching a baseball game.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. Yeah. Tell me, how is it possible he's sitting in Cuba watching a baseball game?
Watching a baseball game after making what seemed like a perfunctory statement about this terrorist attack. Never used the word Islamist, of course. It was, what did they say, 51 seconds he spent on it. To me, he doesn't have to do it in a panic. He could calmly finish the meetings he's having with Castro if that's what he wants to do, and say our business is concluded, and again, calmly go back to the airport and fly back to the U.S., call off the trip to Argentina. It doesn't have to be in mad rush. You don't want ISIS to think we're controlling what we do.
Right.
On the other hand, you should be back and you should be on the phone and scheduling summit meetings with Cameron, with Hollande, all of them, and also Belgian officials to say this is a war we're in, and again, show some leadership, not talk about how we have to reach out and we have to work together and all that stuff. No, it's be firm leadership from the U.S.
Congressman, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.